cardigan I'm doing is it has the pebbles on the beach. And this is the pebbles on the beach. Well, when I'm knitting, even for a young queen, it was things to do with the sea. Seaboot socks, cuffs for chaving their errands. Of course, they used to, I hadn't knit at N.E of them, but they used to wear long drawers, and that was underpants for the men. But I've knit at an awful lot of Ganseys. Now, the Ganseys have all different patterns, and they come for every different fishing village had their own pattern. But there was one pattern, and it's called the marriage lines. And if a fisher girl married her fisherman, the first Gansey it she knitted was the marriage lines. And that was to represent when our man get away to Yarmouth and Lowstiff and Shetlands, they get away during the fishing time. Their dress Gansey, because they never wore shirts, but their dress Gansey was the marriage lines. And the folk kent that they were married, so they had to behave themselves when they were away from home. So this is the marriage lines. And that's knitted 4-ply wool, washet, in size 14s and needles. And that's what we call the wears, knitting wears, because they're steel and they're just like long needles. And that's the because the first Gansey I knitted enough for my man was the marriage lines. And the last time that I worked at the Heron, I was a good hand queen, was 1953 when I was just new married. And we was doing in Yarmouth. I got married in June, and we got away to Yarmouth in September. And there was a carry on with the good hand yards. We was getting 1 shilling and 9p for a barrel of herring. And that was 2 gutters and 1 packer. And I can't mind fumical herring is in a barrel, but it was just, we were just working for pennies. So they decided to go out and strike. And we was asked and got in from my auntie, she worked at another yard. She come round, she says, come on, other yards is in strike today. So we had to leave a farling, and we had to meet with our mate doing at the fish market. And we was out at morning, was the biggest catches that come in. And of course, the herring was all putting into vats until we started our work again. And they were all much squashed. They were like pancakes. We was worse off. We never got our money. We never got the 2 shillings a barrel. And it took about 3 barrels of herring, I would say, to fill a barrel, because they were just flat. So we was no better off. And we was in the front page of the News of the World for going out and strike. And it was 2 days out, and it took a whole week to get that herring and pack him, and it was murder. Honestly, it was just murder. So we was no better off. Well, our strike didn't these no good, because in our days, well, we are so anyway, there was no unions or nothing. It was just the women, some, I can't mind how it was, but it was one of the yards, decided to go out and striking and grown all the yards. And of course, we just all walked away. We didn't even care anything if we was walking away. But we was getting 1 and 9 a barrel, and what we wanted was 2 shillings. It was 3 pennies more a barrel. So, I mean, at 1 and 9, it had to be divided between 3. 2 gutters and a pocker. And sometimes you was working till all hours of night, and you was working outside, and you didn't stop for rain. You just, especially doing in Yarmouth, it was cold. Out in early morning, filling up your barrels and nothing. Standing outside, you wouldn't get the young folk to work like that now. No.
Ethel, would you say that you were hard done tough when you were younger and brought up in that environment? Would you, if you had your life to live over again, would you do exactly the same?
Guinness, I suppose we would, because it was our wildlife. We didn't look for big things. We just looked for a living, I suppose. And we seemed to be happy if it was doing. In them days, nobody helped each other. It's a different world altogether now. Mind you, there's still, especially in the villages, a lot of folk helps each other. And I'm really lucky to be in a good village. This house never used to be empty. Whenever somebody came to the door, a kettle was on. And there was a lady says to me, Heidi, she'd been visiting friends in another village, and they'd come down to our house. My son was selling an engine or something. And they said, oh, we was doing at Pitullie, and what a rare wifey was here. We was not to do our mugget was tea. And she says, oh, but I can't find it, as I thought you telling me.
Was you, Ethel?
Ah, it was me.
Your hospitality. Now, Ethel, you were brought up in an era that there was no mobile phones.
No.
What did you do to amuse yourself?
Eh?
What did you do to amuse yourself?
Well, hey, we just spoke about things that happened long ago. About this was my great-granddad built this house. And there was a man bed next door, Bill Spence, and he wrote poetry. He was a schoolmaster. And he wrote a book. And he wrote a book about other old folk and in his generation, in Pitullie. Now, my granny was called Granny Bale, and my daddy was called Willie Taggy. That's my granddad. We called him daddies. My granddad, we said, was your daddy. And there's a poem about Bill Bernay's hens. It's somebody put rum in their meat, and Bill Bernay's hens, their jokes was all drunk. Now, Bill, my great-granny Bill, had a brother called Noah, and they came for Pete Hill. So there's a public house in St. Haven called the Ark, and it was her brother had built the Ark. And it was Noah had built it, and that's why it was called the Ark. So that was my great-granddad. No, my great-granny's brother.
And were they fishing folk?
Oh,
Ethel?
They were. My daddy had a yoli. He just worked at a small boaty.
The fishing today, Ethel, how is the fishing today compared to that of the past?
Well, it's just like a big factories. It has factory boats now. My father was an engineer in a fishing boat, and there's no odd boats left now at drifters. They're all stamped out. And all the small boaties, the yolis, what they call yolis, is just retired fishermen for a hobby.
It's so interesting to hear this, you know, Ethel, because you're fishing, I'm fisherman. You know, it was different ways of life. You were the sea and we were the land. You know, and I just see that the way that fisherman is going, you know, for even my era, you know, I'm just 60.
But, I worked intensely in the farm. I kent how to hew neeps and look after beasts and, all the things that we did, manual labour, and it was hard graft. But I don't think I did this on a harem. I didn't do it on a harem. But I think in that there was a lot of skills. There was a lot of skills. My dad kent how to mend a tractor. If a tractor broke down, you couldn't just run to your, you just had to do it yourself. You had to think quick, and you had to be adaptable. You had to be adaptable to the weather, to the seasons. And obviously that's the same with fishing. It's highly dependent on the weather.
Oh, aye.
And the elements, it played a big part on our way of life because we were dependent on the weather, And we also had a close connection with the environment. Sea, land, forever. There was a close connection, something that was very important, I think, because you'd lived and breathed it. You lived and breathed it. And, I was just it just brings a tear to my eye when I can hear your background, Ethel, and, thinking back of my forefathers and, fit sustain them hard work, togetherness, the comradeship with the neighbours, and that yet they were isolated. Farmers were isolated. Your nearest neighbour could have been a mile away. So you just couldn't rent a shop. You just had to make your own food. And, I just think about all these skills that we had then. And, with modern technology and how we are now.
The hands, there's things doing with buttons, screwing knobs, and nobody's, they didn't even count in a shop. They didn't even to count up messages now, like what they used to do. And their brains not being used the right way. But still, our generation, I have enough I need to work a mobile phone. I can't work a computer because I don't have. But then they can't do the things that I'm doing. I'm working with my hands in my brain all the time. But they didn't know what to do. They even ask if a question that didn't know, they've a gadget in the house now called, what's her name? As a gadget at the Alexa, they ask Alexa and she tells them. So, it's beyond me.
We've lost a lot, haven't we? Or we're losing a lot, Ethel.
Aye, they're losing a lot. I mean, they're storing up the wrong things in their brain. Nowadays, it seems to be they're wanting to make money, but they're not wanting to work for it. And they're not using the skills that they have, because they're leaving. They just, well, fits a sense, so I can get money for nothing. And it's just a wrong system. It's a system. In my view, it's wrong. But I think it's awfully important that the younger generation mixes with the old folk. If they can pick up the skills that they had, if they want to use them, it's up to their trail. But they'll get a lot more good out of using their hands and their brain in seeing what you've created than just pressing a button and something comes up on a screen.
Again, I was just thinking, and as you listen to the older generation, I could listen day and night to the older generation because they're a wealth of wisdom. They've lived life, they've seen history, and they've seen if it's gone right and they've seen if it's gone wrong. And, you know, it's just quite amazing that, you know, I actually think that sometimes, like Ethel for the fishing background and me for the farming background and the way that we lived life, you know, it's worlds apart to where we are today. And that's fine. That's just how things go in life. But, you know, there is something about this basic way of survival, whether it be fishing for the sea and you bring fish home and you put it on the plate, and there's a communities of people doing that. And you communities of people, you know, that were united in the, you know, and, you know, it was just about survival of that race. Mm-hmm. And it was the same with farming. I mean, we're very close to the land and to animals, and, you know, that was about survival. We kent how to survive off the land, and we kent how to look after our beasts, and that's how we survived. And, you know, it's just it's just so thoughtful for to be in this kind of conversation where we think, looking back on the past, where we've been and how we were able to survive that way, and thinking a bit in the future. What are we going to be like in the future, Ethel? What are we going to be like in the future?